Hello and welcome. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes with Center for Spiritual Living Ocala, and I am so glad that you are joining us this afternoon. Whether you're here with us live or you're watching a recording, we welcome you and we are so glad to have you with us. Let me tell you a little bit about who we are and what we are about. Let's see. Here's our welcome slide at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. We are one of several hundred centers for spiritual living that are located all over the United States, Canada, the rest of the world, although most of them are actually here. We are one, and we are located in Ocala, Florida, and this is what we value. Our list is right here. It's spiritual growth and practice is the thing right at the top. It's the whole reason that we come together. We value love and appreciation and community, freedom of expression, creativity, health and wholeness, generosity, financial well-being. We value lots of other things, but these are the main things to hone it down to who we are and what is important to us. And our mission is to provide spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. Our purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence, and our vision is a world that works for everyone. And these are the mission, purpose, and vision of the whole of Centers for Spiritual Living. And we have our own, and we'll show you that next week. But for now, we're going to just take on the values and the vision and mission of our larger organization. And so we have already had quite a day at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. We actually reopened our live gathering this morning, and it was wonderful. And for all those of you who were there to join us, I'm just so grateful. We had a full house. We met at the Showcase Event Center in downtown Ocala, formerly the Ocala Ballroom, and it was a blast. And so here we are now to have another conversation. And I'm going to bring in Donna Davis.
Hi. See,
Hey,
now I
girl.
gotta roll myself over. Hey,
Yeah,
everybody, how y'all doing?
it's been what, about 15 minutes?
I know. I missed you.
One venue to the next one. It was such a wonderful morning, and thank you so
Yeah.
much for you and Norma and Shanna and Richard and everybody who put so much work into uh,
Mhm.
getting our program up and running again this morning. It was awesome. I
Oh
thought
my
it was
gosh.
anyway.
Thank goodness for all the volunteers that showed up, even the ones that had other stuff that they had to do. Poor Angel had to fly out of there so quickly. But it was just such a beautiful, beautiful experience to see everybody and to be in their presence and to be like, hey, we're here. And to now know that, hey, others in Ocala can find us easier.
Right.
So
And to be in a beautiful, big, sparkly venue.
oh my gosh, right? Elgin and his team did such a beautiful job with that space. It's so amazing. And everyone loved the speaker system. Can I just tell you how amazing that speaker system is? Because you don't have to worry about losing the sound anywhere in that building. So for singers and performers, it's such a wonderful, wonderful place. So they really need to get with it and get over there because it's
Yeah.
amazing.
And you opened so beautifully with the sound bath for those who were in the room to feel that vibration was just awesome. So
Mm,
thank
yeah,
you,
you're
thank you.
so welcome.
So
So,
I'm going to invite you to open us up with prayer before we go into our conversation for today and introduce
mm,
our guests and bring Norma into the picture. And so I'm going to take myself out here for a bit and let you pray us in.
all right, let's do it.
Uh,
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I accept your energy here with my energy as we have these deep conversations. So, what I like to do when I drop in, and I call it just dropping in, is where I just kind of become aware of my physical form. I become aware of the space that I sit in and then aware of everything around me just while I have my eyes closed. And I do that in meditation. And so that's what I mean by dropping in. And I have this little concoction here from my amazing friend Deb, which is all these herbs. And I like to do it this way. So I light up my herbs. And for those of you who's used sage and smudging sticks and things like that, same thing, right? So Taking that deep breath in. I recognize the allness of the one indestructible cause, the vibration of life itself. I know that that which is life is all around me. I recognize that one as everywhere present, forever and ever expanding. And since I'm a part of this physical form that sits in this seat, then I know that if God is everywhere, then God is right where I sit. And I too am a part of the one. I know if it's true for me, it's true for everyone else. Every person that has ever existed, every being, every animal, every plant, every mountain is the one. And as I recognize that and recognize my part in it, I speak my word now, knowing that today's lesson, today's conversation is the one speaking to the one. The one wrote down these words so that the one may hear itself speak. And every ear that hears this message and others like it, that the one speaks to the love and the vibration that is all of us, connecting and reconnecting ourselves to the oneness, and thus connecting and reconnecting ourselves with each other as the one. I know that these words, this movement, these thoughts, this unconditional love that is the one permeates past me and my building, past you and your seat, and out into the world. It is there waiting for us to tap in. And so I release it. I release my thoughts into that wonderful field that is unconditional love, knowing that all that I am is the one, and all of my desires are already known. I release it now, planting that seed and saying in my heart, and so it is. Amen. Ashe. Cindy, you're muted, hun.
Thank you. I was just giving you all kinds of accolades.
Oh, thank you. I felt it. I felt it coming from you. Yeah.
Thank you. You always just do such a beautiful job of presencing, right? Bringing us back to this moment. We had a big morning, and so it's like, breathe, release, be present for what's to come this afternoon.
This moment. Yes, yes.
Moment.
Into this
Yes,
moment.
it's another
Yeah.
new moment. So, like, acknowledge what has passed and be done with that and release it, and now be here present for this next conversation. So,
Yes.
thank you so much for doing that.
I
Thank you.
love doing that because it so gets me right back where I need to be because I'm
Yes.
very squirrely.
Yes, yes, yes. So I guess I'll bring folks in one at a time here, and gonna bring in Norma. Hey, Norma. You're kind of
Hello.
there. You go. Norma and Donna, our dynamic duo. Thank you for joining us, our two practitioners. Norma was also in our venue this morning. Everybody just working and coming together, and it was just beautiful. And thank you again for joining us for this awesome conversation. And I'm going to bring in my friend. I think I'll bring her in, and then I'll talk about her while she's here. Okay.
That's nice.
Welcome, Reverend Mary Ellen Cassie, who is joining us from Ontario, Canada.
Yes.
Yes, yes, how wonderful. Let me tell you a little bit about Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen and I met in the ministerial program with Holmes Institute. We both trained at the same time. We have laughed together and cried together, and joyous experiences, everything in between. And Mary Ellen is a wonderful teacher with decades of experience in teaching, as a guide, as a spiritual leader. There's just so much depth and beauty to this woman. She's a classically trained homeopath. She is also, you've been a, what do you call it, negotiator, union negotiator.
Yeah.
She's done a lot of things. And I thought about you in this conversation that we are having. And I don't know if anybody is joining us for the first time, but we have been this year doing the work of a woman named Valerie Kaur, I think is how you say her name, Kaur. And her book is called See No Stranger. The curriculum that we're using from her book is called the Revolutionary Love Project. So every month we're taking a different part of that curriculum and applying it to our lives, or talking about, discussing how it works. In this idea of revolutionary love, like we're talking about not just loving your family, we can all do that, right? We can love our family, we can love our friends, mostly, right? The challenge is in loving those people who may be very different than us, those people who are showing up as opponents. And of course, that's exactly what we need more than anything in this world. So it is revolutionary love. We're talking the real Jesus kind of love, right? Of loving everybody. And so every month is a different topic, and we have talked about wonder. We have talked about grieving for others. We have talked about fighting for others. All of these things as spiritual practice, right? So that we can be this love that we're meant to be in the world. And this month, I think it's just fascinating, and I'm very excited to be talking about this topic because it's not something that we generally speak of in spiritual community. And that is the idea of rage,
Yeah.
of anger and rage as spiritual practice. And what does our rage have to teach us? Instead of pushing it down and suppressing it, telling ourselves it's wrong, it's bad, it's like, what do we do with that, right? We know that all of our emotions have a purpose. They have a reason for being. There's something that we're meant to gain from them. And so why is it that this anger exists? And so I say all of that to say that when I saw that topic, I thought about Mary Ellen. And yes, for a really specific reason, and I'm sure you're going to tell us, why that is, Mary Ellen, that I feel like you are someone who's very qualified to speak on this idea of rage and how we can use it to our benefit and not get chewed up and spit out by it.
Mm-hmm.
Happens, right? So thank you. That was a very long introduction, but I'm thrilled you're here, and thank you.
Well, I thank you for having me. And once upon a time, I probably wouldn't have admitted to that kind of rage, but I am very familiar with it and lived through it and have made it a friend now, believe it or not, but Valerie's work has certainly helped me continue to still grow from her words of wisdom in her book. I mean, her work is phenomenal. And I joined her and swore a promise in that inauguration back in January, and I have not left my post.
Yeah.
So
I haven't, I don't like to tell other people's stories. So
okay.
You know why I asked you to come. So if you would share with folks what has happened in your life that has given you this intimate relationship and understanding of rage.
Well, after you asked me, I had completely forgot about something else, but Valerie's work talked about it. I mean, so I was very young. I was a young child, 13 or maybe 14, if that. And I was sexually molested in my home. That was the first time after you asking me, I thought, oh my God, I had this. It came back as a memory. And so I had to go and ask myself, that was the first time I really felt rage and also silenced. I could not talk about that for fear if I shared that with my father, there would have been a disaster in my home, worse than what I grew up in, and violence beyond imagination for me. And then I didn't want anything to happen to my father or lose him. So I endured this abuse. But my biggest part of rage, because I stuffed that down till I was in my late 40s to even admit that took place. But the other rage I had was 21 years ago, almost 22 years ago, when my son was accused of a crime of murder. And that was just probably the most horrific thing that happened to me, that I understood rage at a different level, of one of not being in control of, not having any say, and a man was dead, and my son was one of 5 people involved, but my son was the one that was negotiated for ransom, I guess, or for the cause. But anyway, so that went on. 2 of his stepbrothers were involved in that. Never, they became witnesses for the crown, and eventually my son was found guilty of 2nd-degree murder and sentenced to life. And I had worked in the courts for 14 years at this time, and now I was working as a negotiator in Toronto. But I came back to my hometown, Windsor, Ontario, sat in the same courtroom I sat in for many, many years, doing other trials and things like that. And very familiar with the process, except I was on the other side of the bench at that time. And I sat with about 50 people of that family's members, and they all took a turn, either breathing down my neck or calling me names, and my life was threatened, etc. So the impact of all of this changed my whole life. I was unable to walk. I lost my mobility. So emotions can throw you off your game and your even physical beingness. And I spent a month at a trial, and I never missed any court proceedings for my son. And so my time in the courtroom, I just want to share this piece with you, because how did I get through this? Was through my practice. I was a Buddhist at this time. And so I prayed. I took the anger in from that family, and I breathed out free. So I took it in and out for 40. I was there for four weeks straight. And I didn't know how I was going to get through any of it, but that's what was my saving grace, was my practice, my faith and my practice. And so I used to read, of course, I had a book, as always too, The Wounded Healer, great book to read, but my practice was breathing in and breathing out, that their family wasn't impacted as well. They didn't have the same kind of treatment for me, but that wasn't up for me. I was doing what I needed to do for myself and for them. And so my son just got out of prison 2 years ago, and he's a lifer. So he's on probation for life. But that is how I ended up sustaining myself. And there were different elements, but I don't need to go into the shame and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, one can only imagine, and this was my first child, my firstborn child. And so my life changed dramatically after that, and it changed me. but I kept supporting for 21 years. So, you know, and he had a child, and she was just, my other part of this story, and the rage was that she was raped and murdered 2 years ago. And so, again, I lean into that pain, and I began forgiving the man that did what he did to my granddaughter. And this is how I live my life. I'm not condoning anyone's behavior or anyone's actions, but it's how I got to move through it that gives me the calm today. So that's probably my biggest story to share. I had an outrage outbreak a couple of weeks ago that I shared with you, Cindy, but this was, for me personally, my personal rage came in the year 2014 when we were in school together, when I attended my son's probation hearing, and I learned of the truth. I should never have been in a car driving home because I was really not together to do that. But once home and once in my practice, again, then I could move through it and heal it again. So that's it. It's about having a deep practice. And one of them is praying the land, which I call, that's my words for gardening. But that's what I do. I have to dig in the soil and be with life outside. So.
Such a painful and powerful, amazing story. And, you know, being with you as you went through that process, knowing you at that time, you know, as you were moving through that, I feel like this anger, you know, we talk about anger and that idea of it being a pressure cooker, right? You know, there's this heat that's coming, and it just, you know, if you don't let it out in spurts, it gets explosive, and that's where we have the problems. And, you know, so that's why we want to talk about this idea of rage being something that's a natural, normal emotion. I mean, for someone to go through what you went through, you know, your son, losing your granddaughter in the horrific, violent way that you know, that you lost her. If anyone was entitled to feel rage, you know, I would say it's you know, your son. And I can see where, just like the analogy again of the pressure cooker, right? That anger, that rage, that pressure. You put something in the pressure cooker and it's tough and it's hard and it's, you know, it's one way. Then it undergoes this transformative process through that heat and pressure, and it turns into something different, you know. And I've looked at you, and I remember when you had trouble walking.
Yes.
Right, when you needed people to walk with you and help you here and there, and I don't know how much weight you've lost, but you look visibly, physically, you look different. Your smile is different. Your everything is different.
Yes, I am alive and well. I mean, it is I like to use the word, it's a miracle. I know some people don't like the word, by the grace of God go I, but I have no other reason than this presence, that my indwelling presence is alive and well. And you're right, and I am smiling. And when my granddaughter died, I'm not sure if I ever shared that with you, but I went to the funeral. It was horrific for me. I mean, she was 23 years of age, beautiful, wanted to be loved and married and have children. And I remember leaving the funeral parlor, or the funeral service, because it was in a great big stadium. She was so well liked. And I just said, you know, I drove through a storm to get there, and then on the way home, the sun just burst open. I waited for a rainbow to show up, because I said, oh, Lord, give me a sign. Like, what do I do now? What do I do now in holding this? as you say, the pressure cooker. Was I going to just let go, or who knew what? We're physical, human, and emotions all wrapped up. And so in that moment, I no sooner got out of the parking lot and headed down this road, and my granddaughter's name was Jocelyn. And she said, "Grandma, live your life out loud." And I shook my head because I thought, okay, now I don't want to start hallucinating, because I, check in, hello. And then I heard it again. I said, "Grandma, just live your life out loud." And from that moment on, I committed to doing that, hearing her words for me. It's time to take back my life. It's time to live my life. And so I bought, a burning bush, and I planted it in her name. And I have one, hers is Jocelyn, and mine was Embers, for my grief, that they were still smoldering. And now I have just passed through it all. And so I'm on the other side, and I'm smiling, and I'm happy. And I talk to her whenever I want. I did some really deep work, if you can imagine. So it wasn't snapping my fingers. It was leaning in and leaning in and leaning in and going in for seconds if I needed to do so. To be with it. There's no escape. That's what I have learned over my time with her.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm.
So many of us in New Thought, we're taught to deny, right?
Yeah.
You deny, and some people mix that up. They think that we're teaching, or we're saying to deny the circumstances. Well, you can't deny circumstance. You can't deny a thing like that.
No.
Right? Your son's pain, you're losing your granddaughter. There's no denying of that. But what we need to do, and as you said, is like lean in, so you can move through it.
It.
Yeah.
I
experience with this, Donna.
when the rage comes, they say, I know myself. And so because I know that I am easy to get to that moment of frustration, which then gets me to the moment of anger, which then throws me into rage, which then throws me into get out of there or punch my way through whatever's in my way. So I have to catch myself way ahead of the game because of my own anxiety and depression and all of that. I'm aware that that physical hormonal dump is happening. So when it's happening, I have to say, whoa, what is this? And when I feel it, I go, is this going to take me down that road? That is the anger. And sometimes you need the anger. You need to be angry, something like that. I mean, you can't deny that that painful, horrible thing happened. So guess what? How do we say, okay, this happened? Because of course you have to do that deep shadow work that Mary Ellen is talking about, that deep dive into pulling it apart and getting to the forgiveness. Wow. And then you say, not another child. And then you take action. And I think it's that rage that pushes you through that shadow work. And then you come out the other side and become ministers like Reverend Mary Ellen is, or practitioners like Norma or me or Cindy. We come out the other end and say, okay, we know what that anger is. We felt it. It almost killed us. And we push past it in through the forgiveness. And now let us do something about it. Without that, Martin Luther King Jr. said it. It was his angriest day.
Civil rights movement. Yes.
When the civil rights movement started. And I think it's that fire, and I think, you feel that little bit of anger and it's like, okay, a little bit of something. It's kind of like striking that match and nothing's happened, striking the match, nothing's happened. And then finally that last thing happens that goes and boom. And if you let that pressure cooker sit there and don't let out some of that pressure, ooh, yes, honey. Instead of it using that anger and that fuel to get us to where we need to be.
And remembering what you said, Donna, for me, it resonates with me that for that first month, I actually thought my granddaughter died a natural death of some sort, or something happened. It was a month for the autopsy to come back and tell us the news. That was a shock indeed. But then I realized the man that did this, I went and posted right away. It was now time to start forgiveness for this person that I did not know. And that he had parents, he had a family, he had a mother and a father, just like I was a mother, and it impacts more than just the one person or the victim. I've lived through this, and I just thought of my granddaughter, and I thought, I don't know this man, but I ended up finding out, of course he had parents, and he ended up having a 10-year-old son. Mm. And it'll be a year ago in August that he took his life instead of going to trial. Now, I did not attend any proceedings. I was not interested in doing that. I was interested in loving that man and knowing that he just lost something, forgot something. That's where I went to. I was surprised as all get out. I was, but I can't hate and say I love at the same time. That's an oxymoron. Right. It doesn't exist. So I promised to not do that. And I would have been, it was hard. It was hard for my family. My family never called up and asked me once how I was doing, ever. And I've had to forgive them and let them go. So I live a different life, and it's a life that I love, and a life that I want to keep showing up in love and kindness. I mean, as you say, I'm not ignorant. When I feel rage, as I did 2 weeks ago with learning what the genocide was here in my own country, hidden from many of us, the genocide of the indigenous people here in my land, and I live on native land, I was on fire. Mm-hmm. And yeah. I was asked for my wisdom that evening, and I had to sit down and pray myself in a bit before I responded, because I just, and I'll be honest, I hated all the politicians. I thought, what country am I in? I had to really go soul searching before I responded to a friend's request for some wisdom from me, because she knows who I am. But I'll tell you, I go back to my principles and go back to my practice of loving kindness. Mm-hmm. And this was a religious, many churches involved in doing this of residential schools that caused the harm. And so it's been sad here for over 2 weeks for Canada, grieving and understanding. I mean, I think that's probably a key point, is understanding. And if you can resurrect just even a pinch of compassion, and you can't get there unless we understand a little bit, because I'm still in the process of forgiving these religious people. And for the Pope last week to just say, he didn't say he was sorry. I had to turn him off. And he's a man that knows a lot about compassion. And I liked him up until last week. And now the jury's out for me. You got to come up to my standards, or I'd have little time for your airtime. That's how I am today. And I get to choose who I let in my life. And Francis isn't one of them today, right now.
Right now.
Maybe in the future, but today, no.
Yeah. I think we have to honor where we are. That's one of the things, right? Is to allow ourselves to feel whatever it is that we feel in that moment. Now, when I say, I just want to make this clear. I don't know if anybody's watching, for the first time, that when we're talking about this idea of rage and feeling it, it doesn't mean to go out and act with violence.
Absolutely.
acknowledge that the feeling is there, right? Know that it's there.
Yeah.
Let it do what it needs to do inside of you, but you don't, we don't take it out on other people.
But sometimes that's what helps you create healthy boundaries.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
that's one of the things with Norma, right, babe? That her favorite saying that she says, I mean, sometimes just the rage is what stops us and gets us into that point of saying, wait a minute, this is not going to work for me. This is my boundary today, not today, you know, or this is my boundary forever. This doesn't work. I'm not doing it anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's, I
Yeah.
want to go to
You have
what,
to hear Norma say it though, babe. Go ahead and say it.
What?
What's
I'm
your
not doing that.
I'm not doing that.
that's it. That's all she has to say. I'm not doing that.
She's a woman of few words, but she'll look at you and be like, I'm not doing that.
No.
Healthy boundaries. But I think that that's part of the rage too, because you feel the rage and you're like, wait a minute, wait a minute. I am tired of being disrespected. This is
Yes.
it. This is my line. Because
Yeah.
sometimes you get angry, and you don't go anywhere near that line. But when someone crosses that line,
No.
you know exactly where it is. And those of us who are like, ooh, I'm not feeling that again, we draw our line.
Yeah. As Valerie says, I want to repeat this quote that she says here: love is a labor that engages all of our emotions. Joy is the gift of love. Grief is the price we pay for love. And anger is the force that protects that which is loved.
Ooh.
Mhm.
And I think that's just so beautiful. And I want to bring Norma into this conversation because Norma, you have this way of, like Donna said, drawing that line.
Mhm.
I don't think anybody ever feels like Norma's gonna like pop me or something. But people know when Norma says, I'm not doing that, or, this is the line right here, people know you don't cross that. And I don't know, what is it, Norma? Do you have any idea what is that you bring?
Well, it starts with surrounding yourself with people who know and respect you,
Yes.
because that's paramount for any good relationship. And sometimes people do things not thinking, and when you say anything contrary to them doing that, immediately they think, "Oh yeah, that's not a good idea." For a real quick, short one, we allowed somebody to have a birthday party here at our house this past weekend. At about 1 o'clock, everybody was peeling out and leaving all this mess for me and my wife to clean up. It wasn't even our party. We weren't had nothing to do with it. It was just at our house. And I'm like, hold on, there's a problem here. and then everybody started cleaning up, and because there's just boundaries that are there, and they. Mm-mm.
Mhm. Sometimes people just forget. And sometimes that's a little reminder says, hello, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And in a gentle, because everybody knows that, anytime you want from me and I have it, I will just gladly lay it at your feet until the boundary is crossed. you know and most people, now if somebody trips up and crosses the boundary, like somebody who's um
Going through that
vulnerable, for
story.
example, or inebriated or something like that, then you have to ask yourself, who do you want around you? People who, when they get near your line, you have that heart to say, hey, I'm not okay, and them all to stop and say, let's now love on this person. Why are they not okay? And that's what's so great about our tribe, that we can do that with each other. The challenge comes in when we're out and about. And I think that that's what we're talking about with Nora, because when we're out and about and people who are not of our tribe, like, she doesn't say to them, hey, I'm not doing that at all. She doesn't even vocalize it. She just has this look on her face that says, I'm not going to put up with whatever it is that you have going on. And people just steer clear of her. And I watch it, and I don't know if it's an energetic thing that she does, like this walk that she has, that she walks in the room that says, please don't mess with me because I'm not the one. And if they decide that they're going to step up, usually just the look on her face says, yeah, no, I think I'll pick someone else.
Or I
And she
remove
just does
myself.
that. It's the
Or I
look.
remove myself.
It has to do with.
I said, or I will remove myself. I'll just leave to avoid any type of confrontation or anything that's going to be unpleasant. Before I say something ugly, I'll leave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody put vibes. I don't know if they know you, but it's a fact. When I think of like the boundary boss, you know, this is the line here. You don't cross it. I channel my inner Norma.
I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing that. I need to protect what I love.
Right, exactly. And there's some people that will just, where I won't let a stranger do to me what somebody super close to me will, especially if they're going through something, because I can love on them and I can pour my heart and soul into them. And I know they're going to do the same to me. With complete strangers, like Norma said, I just avoid them. I just see their energy coming from afar and I just do a long gate around them because it's just not worth me having to even brush the atmosphere that you're in because it's going to pull my vibration down. That's why I tell people, I'm like, listen, if you're vibing down here and you're willing to get out of there and you're working on yourself and stuff like that, I am there with you in the trenches. Let's do this. But if you're vibing down here and you're wanting to roll over people and be a complete and total idiot to others and just without regard of anybody's feelings or whatever, you're vibrating really low. I'm not even going to be in your atmosphere. I'm going to avoid you as much as I can because it just pulls me down into there. And now I'm got that muck on my, and I have to allow my body to go through whatever hormonal thing's going to happen when I get into that space. So I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah.
You know, y'all, the time has gotten away from us again. We have only a half hour for our conversations, and it's always so deep and wonderful. But we're going to continue. This is like this month, and you're going to join us again next week. Are you not, Mary Ellen?
Yes, yes.
Wonderful,
Thanks.
wonderful. Because I want to pick up the thread, and I'd like to read the statement. I don't have time to do it today, but I do want to read the statement from our home office regarding
Yes.
the tragedy, what happened in Canada at the native schools. So I want to pick up that conversation, that thread. But I just
Sure.
really want to take a moment and thank you for sharing your story.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know that I have heard you share it out loud. I don't know if you have, but it is an honor for us to.
Only once before. I did it from the pulpit, actually. And I'll tell you about that another day. And I just want to say thanks to Donna and Norma because I say I'm allergic to prickly people.
I like that.
And it works for me very easily, like this. I'm just allergic. Okay.
I love
And then
it.
I say it's okay.
And
But
you know,
I'd be honored to be back with you, actually. Sure.
and I want a shout out to Jocelyn for that just phrase, live out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't live out loud if you're carrying all of this stuff with you, this emotional baggage. If you're in anger, if you're in unforgiveness, if you're in all of that stuff, like you said, Donna, brings you down, you can't live out loud.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
And so thank you for that, for sharing
Thank
that.
you.
Yes. And thank you, ladies, for being on today for such a big day. I'm just honored and blessed to have to be friends with all of you. Thank you. And we will continue this conversation next week. We're not actually going to do the Zoom because we were together already, we gathered, but next week we will. So if you can join us on Zoom next week, Mary Ellen, that would be awesome. I see some posts here. Someone, Mary Lou, thanking you for your story. She knows Norma too. She said people, if they cross Norma, all hell will break loose. And they know that's not going to be fun. So thank you, ladies. And we'll connect after this.
Yes.
Love you. Love you.
Mm.
Happy Sunday.
Yes.
Okay. Wow, gosh, we could just talk for hours. That's what happens. You get ministers together, and people who have stories to share. That's that's pretty huge. There's not too many people who I don't know anybody really who's gone through something like that and come out on the other side of it, not just surviving, but actually living out loud. And so I'm just so grateful to have had this platform for Mary Ellen to share that story. So thank you for being with us. And it's time for, sharing of gifts and tithes. Let me put a little banner up here. For those of you who are uplifted, who appreciate the message and the mission and the vision, what we're trying to do here at the Center for Spiritual Living, we just appreciate you so much, and we frankly would appreciate your support, financial or otherwise. If you're in the area and you can volunteer, we have lots to do at our center. People who maybe have gifts as far as marketing possibilities or, office work, or if you do landscaping, all those kinds of things, we could use help at the Center for Spiritual Living. But if you have a financial gift, we would gladly appreciate it. And you can do this. The information is scrolling across the bottom. If you have a smartphone, you text to that number and you put in the amount of money that you would like to donate to the center, and it goes right out of your account into ours. And that number is 352-320-5110. Or you can go to CSL Ocala/donate and do it online. You can also do snail mail. We take any kind of way you want to give it to us. Let's see. And I have our affirmation. I invite you to make this your own. And as you share that gift, or you think about sharing it, you can bring this affirmation to mind. Maybe just hold your hand over your heart. And it is this: it is the nature of life to give of itself, as it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom. It is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. I am so very grateful. And I know that each one of you is a blessing. And I affirm that the blessing that you are just ripples out from you and just, creates this never-ending ripple of love and peace and joy that comes from your heart and touches the people that you love and care about. And maybe some people that you don't like so much, that you can offer that forgiveness and maybe be the light for somebody else to come out of the darkness and turn their lives around. So let's see, that. What else do we have here? Our prayer for protection. But before we do that, I want to just again invite you all for Super Second Sundays live at CSL Ocala. The next one will be in July, and we'll keep doing this every week. Every week for as long as people are watching, and as long as we're here to do it. And so, with that, we'll do our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And I just affirm that wherever you are, whatever challenges you may be going through, that those challenges become stepping stones to your greater yet to be, to your transformation. And I just affirm love and peace and joy and kindness as you go through your week. Love and blessings. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week.